All right. All right, good evening. I would like to call the Tuesday, November 15th Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I do not have any announcements for us this evening. Moving on to that, is there anyone here for anything that is not currently published in our agenda? And seeing as none, we'll move right into the first agenda item, which is to consider a sign waiver for 295 Main Street and possible votes. Is everybody here for that? Come on up.
How you guys doing today? We're the owners of 295 Main Street. Now we're just looking to do some signage for the for Sandra's real estate brokerage and also the used bookstore. And we currently are over on the square feet on the sign and the amount of signs.
Okay. So I want to first of all commend you guys. The building looks great.
Thank you.
You guys did a fantastic job renovating that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
Big undertaking. Thanks for keeping the patience while it was a 2-year project too.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Once you guys get started on them, like, ooh, they got some work cut out for them over there.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you can do the rest of the town too.
Yeah.
We just need funding.
If you guys got a few extra days, like there's a couple other buildings that are there.
I know.
Side hobby.
All right, so sign one is 66 square feet located at the front of the building.
Not
Well, 1.66 square feet, sorry, I don't have my glasses on.
it's bigger. I want
You can put a 66 footer up. No, just kidding. The next one is 6.86 square feet on the side of the building and 6.86 square feet on the side of the building. And they're lit signs?
No, they're not.
No? Oh, it looks like it.
Just
They
gonna
look
be
very well in keeping.
engraved PVC.
With the font, it'll match the building pretty well. It'll look
Yeah.
nice. Any thoughts on the signs?
Absolutely.
It's attractive.
It's attractive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, the subtle approach is nice. It's not bold, it
Yeah.
should fit in well.
We wanted it to kind of match with the historical building
Yeah.
next door, their signage,
Yeah.
and what the signing on the building used to be like back
On the
when
front of
it
the
first
building. Yeah.
was erected.
Hopefully it becomes contagious.
I know, I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't have any objections to the signs.
It should fit well into Hal's recommendation for
Main Street.
revitalization and Main
No, I
Street.
think this, we don't have an overall plan, but this certainly looks like it would be consistent with.
Correct.
With
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we
So-
can do with the plan is see what those guys did.
Yeah, maybe
do
we'll
that.
say everybody follow that.
Use this as an example,
Yeah.
please.
I'll make a motion to approve the requested approvals of the 3 signs that before the board.
Second.
Excellent. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
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 I do have the sign waiver for them to sign, and I can notarize right now, just to get it out of the way, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
please. You see that? Government moving efficiently right there for you.
Lightning speed.
So you will sign here and date, and then I'll notarize it. You could take one of the copies.
Not too much backup.
No.
Had it ready to go if it was approved.
Now, is the bookstore open now, or?
Not yet. They're still doing their inventory and decorating and stuff, and I think Ken has to just do a walkthrough, give them a sign off on the
Awesome.
inside. So.
And the real estate office is the same thing, right?
Real estate, we're signed off, so we're good to
Yeah,
go.
we're signed off.
And
I'm just kind of waiting for the signs to kind of,
Makes it easier, advertising helps.
exactly, yeah. But we are good to go.
long journey.
Yes.
I'll pass that to the building department
New
in the
books?
morning.
All right, perfect. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Usable.
Yeah. Okay. So our second agenda item is Oktoberfest Committee, storage units on town property, and possible votes.
Hello.
Did you have any trouble making your way through the crowd to get up?
Yeah.
No.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. Oktoberfest is successful. This last time we started out with a couple hours of rain in the morning.
Yeah,
It was a perfect day after, so it was good. The reason I'm here is because we have a storage problem, okay? For the last 20 years, we're using a storage container that's up right aside of the old firehouse. That's perfect. The location is perfect. It works great, but it's not big enough. I need another one. I just happen to have another one. I would like to put it right aside of the old one. That's why I'm here. I mean, it's pretty simple. The location is perfect. It's out of the way. It's, it's out of eyesight. Nobody really sees it unless you're.
Would it be year-round, it would be there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's for storage of our materials. We have stages, we have, rides and bouncies and, all kinds of stuff. And we need a place to put it on the off-season. But it also has to be handy to the area so that we can get it there fast and especially we can clean it up fast. That's really the key. Is that, it takes a while to set up, but we can clean it up in 3 hours with the right number of volunteers and stuff. But it's got to be within proximity to do that, So it's a perfect location. We already have a unit there, we're just asking to
Have another one for a
put
company.
another one right aside of it. And I just happen to have it too. So, and it's got to move from where the location it is, so.
The only concern I would have is if there's any future change of use in that area, if we have decided to do anything with that old fire station, that if this isn't a lifetime tenancy of a storage container there, that it would be understood that if something happens with that, at some point, something has to go on with that building, that we would address it at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also look for any input from the town administrator as to what his feelings may be on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I guess my perspective is Oktoberfest is a town-sponsored
Yeah.
event. So really, when it comes to limiting what they do, it's really, their committee is arranging for the storage containers, but at the end of the day, the storage containers are not really your property, but they're on your property, so if you want them to move, you can ask them to move. Hopefully, we would work that out if we ever had to. But, we shut the streets down, we do all kinds of really significant accommodations for what is basically a one-day event. And I think one of the most remarkable things about it is how fast it gets set up and taken down. It's like 2 days of work for a 8-hour event. So, personally, I'd like to recommend that we make it easier for them if we can.
Yeah, and I want to do that. And my only concern, just so it doesn't become a conversation down the road that,
Right.
well, you said we could have it there, now we can't. So I just don't want to. It's easy to address it at the beginning. We're all on even ground at this point. That's the only reason I bring it
We
up.
can always change in the future.
I have-
Something else
Yep.
was happening with the building,
Yep.
but
I have no thoughts for the building. It's just a concern that I would like to address at the beginning, so.
Oh, it's fair.
I'll move approval of the request to have another storage unit next to the existing storage near the old firehouse.
I'll second that, but we're going to have more conversation on that.
It's made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yep, just making sure. Because we do have a bylaw about storage containers. So we just have to be mindful of that because people,
Yeah, by way of context, I mean, it's a kind of a sideways way that it was done in the drafting of the zoning bylaw. But in the definitions, it is noted that the municipality is exempt from the provisions of the bylaw.
Yeah.
And we do have a storage container at the Martin Road Recreational Complex for the baseball and softball little kids for their league. It's only an exception that the town engages in for the benefit of the town.
yep. And the only reason I bring it up is so it's publicized and people are aware of it. Somebody's watching it and they just say, well, I want a storage container, and then we start a new process, that's all.
They want to run another October or an April Fest, maybe?
No. Oh, no, don't start. Don't go there.
April 1st? I like that.
Welcome spring to Doug.
Long time to plan this one.
Yeah, there was rumor that Tony wanted to do it biannually. I don't know if there's any truth to that or anything.
He wants to do October in like April or June or something.
Yeah.
We're not going to say that.
Make sure it doesn't rain.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
That's just what you wanted, right, Tony? More work?
No,
No. All right. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? No. Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
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 thank you, guys.
Very welcome.
You guys
Mr.
are
Chairman,
awesome.
just for the benefit of the audience, I just want to make them aware of that. It isn't always this fun.
Yes, it is.
And
It's
we-
always this fun.
And we really appreciate your support in helping us put this event on. so.
It's a great event, and it puts Douglas on the map, so we're happy to help.
You do all the work, I mean, you did the hard part.
Yeah, all right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. All right, so we're on to ARPA discussion and possible vote. Is there anything new or?
No one has any questions, I don't have anything to say.
No, but I would like to make a motion on that, a suggestion on that, not a motion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. I'd like to talk about this when everybody's here, of course, but I would like to try to set a goal deadline of like probably January 31st to resolve whatever it is that we're going to do, to give us a full 2 months if we think we need that. But if we don't set any sort of timeline goal, he may look like your hairstyle by the end of it, because he'll be waiting for us to do what we got to do, and he'll pull out his hair in the meantime.
This is by design, all right?
Yeah, okay, all right. I just don't want him to look like you.
Most of these projects, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
most of these projects are not difficult to procure.
Right.
If it's a vehicle or some, but those water projects,
Well, that's why I
Either or.
want to give you,
so when we go
Much
out
time.
and the engineer does the design, and then the project book comes back and it's hundreds of pages and there's lots of drawings, and the procurement process takes a while. It has to be posted in numerous locations, and then there's usually pretty stiff competition for work like that. We really need to think about this as a
Yeah, that's why I
6-month or
figured give you
7-month
about-
process.
give you about 23 months to accomplish the goal. Yes.
We would prefer to close it out so that we're not chasing reporting periods and other things after the program closes. Just simple. Just to let you know where my head is, if town meeting approves an expenditure for a senior bus tomorrow, then I will replace that proposed expenditure with other projects that were in line that qualify as quote-unquote capital. In other words, they're large expenditures with a useful life of X years, well beyond, they're not operating expenses of the town. But we have, some repairs/building improvements that have become necessary as we've progressed along with the fire station. And I would rather not have to burden capital for an $11,000 repair, for instance, to move a Plymouth vent hose from one side to the other of the bay. Things like that it would clean up, but I think most of that money is going to be absorbed by a much higher quote that came in from the camera company, the security company for the schools. And after they did their walkthroughs and they worked it up with the different experts that they have, and they carefully looked at the field of vision that they would get on each location, they've significantly upgraded the equipment purchase. So, the quote's gone up by about $60,000. Still, in light of the $2.7 million that the town was allocated, it's not a lot of money, but just want to make everybody aware that there would be a cut and fill, if you want, have lack of a better term. If something gets taken.
Yeah, well, that was only a suggested item on the thing. thing anyway.
But it's the water, that drives the rest of your conversation, is which water
Yep.
project you want to pick,
Yep.
and that's important.
Yep.
The thing I wrestle with is whether you try to use the money for a bunch of smaller projects, or you do one or two major projects and trying to evaluate that. So we'll be thinking about, but I think it's good to have.
Yeah, it's just the thought process I had on the bigger projects is if you go out to fund, say that the enterprise fund funds goes out and gets funding for the water line that goes up towards the highway, do they have the capacity to go out and get more funding to do a water line somewhere else? So it's just an opportunity that we have to think long and hard about
Yeah.
to make sure we make the right one, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we will move to 4, authorizing the town administrator to advertise the RFQ for the design of the highway department and possible votes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that we move that, or pass this over, and I will deal with the topic at number 6 with my report. I don't have a drafted RFQ yet.
Okay.
But I've made some progress, so I'd like to update the board.
Okay.
I don't want to ask you to vote on authorization without seeing what's
Right.
obviously being put
Rather
out.
have
It's being authorized.
Right.
No, I would ask to have Tim here anyways, that way we're all here, since we have a,
Yeah. All right, so we're off to approved minutes. We don't have any minutes in our.
There
packet.
are currently no minutes. so
yeah, I
we can
looked for
pass
them, but I
over
had a
that.
whole bunch of empty tabs in here, so I couldn't
Excuse me,
find
it's-
them. I didn't know if they were.
There's no minutes,
misplaced.
we only have seconds.
All right,
They're not misplaced.
okay, no, I didn't know, I was just checking.
So that would bring us to your report, Mr. Administrator.
Set a record.
I think Mike
I'm going to do,
has the
I'm
12.
going to do everything I can to keep you from breaking that record. I promised, Mike. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, we did go to the formal grant announcement and award out in Brockton yesterday with the Lieutenant Governor, who did a nice job, I think, her and her staff, of outlining how competitive this round of site readiness grants was. And there were many millions of dollars of projects proposed, and about 12 projects were selected out of 43, and Douglas was one of them. So I think we're in good company, and unofficially, it looks like we also got the biggest award. The city of Brockton got 2. I think if you added the 2, that was the most money, but the individual project, ours was the biggest. So that particular site readiness grant will be used to evaluate North Street and the ability of North Street to handle infrastructure upgrades, perhaps some design change to take some of the curbs and some of the precarious sight lines out. But what we're trying to do in the long run is loop the water line up at the top of the hill with the industrial development that's going to be done in pine, sand, and stone. That will greatly enhance the flow and pressure to that part of town. And frankly, it's probably necessary anyway, so the small pipe that we have going up that hill now won't be an effective part of a loop. It needs to be replaced with a bigger pipe. But that will go a long way towards just the overall quality of the fire suppression effort in that part of town, as well as people's domestic water service. We have always feared that there might be a lot of infiltration in the wastewater system in that part of town, but the smoke test revealed that that was not necessarily the case. There is one known source of groundwater that is a problem, but it will take over $600,000 to engineer this entire effort. I just want to assure folks that that's a heavily populated street. It's also well-traveled. We understand that. So communication is actually the primary focus of this part of the overall economic development effort, is to make sure that we don't lose the consensus of the town to support those development efforts. So this part of the project has to be scoped out in a way that the neighborhood will support. And there are a lot of people that live on North Street. We know from experience, right, that road tends to ice up pretty bad in the winter. there are a number of design improvements that can be made, and those things will generally enhance people's experience living on the road. Plus, they get a new road out of it, which is not bad either. So that is the overall objective of the site readiness grants, why we applied for it. We're glad we
Is
got it.
that just going to be for the engineering?
Just the
And
engineering.
where's the balance to actually do the project coming from? Is that in-
We would be applying for another MassWorks grant.
Hopefully they'll continue to look upon us favorably, right?
Yeah.
Redoing North Street's a great thing, because that gets potholes that could legitimately eat a Buick,
Indeed. That's
And an
part of the
overbill.
thought process.
maybe.
We think we have an overwhelmingly strong case for MassWorks because the development projected for pine, sand, and stone is really of a statewide level of notice, would be a substantial change. So, tomorrow morning at Pleasant Valley Country Club, the town of Douglas will get an award for its economic development efforts. The chamber is going to recognize Mr. Monerick and CRG, the developer, for pulling this whole thing together, the first warehouse on Gilboa Street. So we'll all be heading out to that, and any number of state and local officials will be in attendance, so it's a nice feather in the cap. I think, Bob certainly deserves the recognition he's going to get from the chamber, so happy to be there to cheer that on. As far as the RFQ for the design of highway department, at this phase, we're talking about feasibility, so we are looking at 3 different sites, and Matt Benoit and I and Bob Sullivan and Adam and John went out and toured 3 locations. Just for sometimes it's better to just get out there
Yeah.
and get your feet wet and see what it really looks like out there, and some of the topographical maps are no longer reflect Buff's activity. His bridge building enterprise and his, speaking of cutting and filling, it was pretty interesting landscape. So we've looked at the former Buckeye Pipeline site, which the town owns. The town purchased that land for purposes of defending your wellheads. And so there's a limit to what can be done there. And the limitations really become very apparent as you walk past the tree line and into the back of the property. It's very wet. There's a really significant, in New England, we call them brooks. I guess in the South, we call it a creek. There's a big old creek back
You'd
there.
be
that's-
storing salt there too, right? And some-
Well, that's, yeah, there's ways around that and to be safe about that, but it's awkward, right? It takes extra precautions. So that's like number 3, not the highest and best. But we'll wait for a design consultant. We got to give them a couple of things to chew on. The positive thing about that property is it is in the center of town. And there's a whopper 3-phase electrical connection that's available because the old pipeline had huge pumps. So this thing has a transformer pad and it's all set up. So we wouldn't have to run electricity into the site, which is nice. That can be expensive too. The second site that we looked at was the pit behind the soccer field, the Axemen's soccer field, which is town property. There's some 50 acres there that over the years, when Buff was the highway super, he was digging in there because the sand was pretty good quality, so that's the sand he was using to sand the roads in Douglas in snowstorms. So he hollowed out quite a space, and now we've been backfilling it with stumps and other
Whatnot.
things that we've collected, but not street sweepings and not stormwater
Bad.
catch bays and stuff. All of that has been picked up and moved and disposed of as it's supposed to be. So we have all the proof that we did what we were supposed to do with those products. But there is we scrape in the ground from time to time and get things out of the way. It all goes up there. So it at one time was probably a very aggressive grade, and it's been partially hollowed out, and there's still some high ground up there, but it's surrounded by water. So there's water in the front, and there's water on the side, and there's actually a creek to the rear. So the building envelope is sort of a wide V-shaped configuration, so you'd probably have to build more than one building. But there is power halfway up the driveway and an existing crossing, so you don't really have to go hog wild getting approval if you're just going to use the existing crossing. We'd probably have to widen it, and there would be some work done in the area of jurisdiction, but not a bad solution either, because it is, there's a house on one side, but it's pretty isolated. So all those backup sounders and everything that drive people crazy about highway departments, we would be able to insulate people from that mostly, and bring everything together, so salt and sand and everything. The other possibility is to look at our existing site and surrounding properties. And it's a more complicated project because you have to negotiate with private parties to try to get to where you want to be. It is probably one of the most attractive though, because we're already there. Our salt's already there, our sand's already there. We would have to take all the buildings out. But if we were able to put together the right configuration of pieces, we could defeat the disturbance created by the easement that divides the highway from fire now. If we owned enough of the property, we would be the beneficiary of our own easement. We'd be able to go up and down it. And that has the obvious benefit that it's already there. There's power in the site. If we were to run wastewater and water up, that would be a logical place to terminate the service, because we have got Family Convenience looking to do a significant development across the street, then their existing building will still be there. There'll be a number of customers that would hook up right in that immediate neighborhood, including our own fire station. So those are the 3 sites. Jury's out, so if there are other things the select board wants to be on that list of potential lots, my emphasis has been properties controlled by the town already to the greatest extent possible, so that we don't get delayed by
Takings and whatever.
takings or difficult negotiations, getting appraisals, doing a lot of upfront work. We want to be able to build this building as quickly as possible. So once I write that up, there'll be a package. You saw some of the draft maps were out on your conference room table. We'll let the consultant do a little bit more detailed work and come up with a recommendation. Okay, so that's the plan. The plan is to get this out in the next couple of weeks, but again, I won't ask you to vote on it, obviously, if you can't read it, so. Still in that. And I think we went through the process, I'll reiterate, it goes to BF, once it's advertised and we get packages in, the BFCC will evaluate all the proposals and give
Same
you
as
the
the
3
generator process.
The 3 top finishers will come to you for consideration. Okay?
That's typically a pretty quick process. I've been through that with them before.
In terms of winter, we hope it doesn't come.
It's almost spring.
Yeah, no kidding. So just to give folks a sense of deadlines and difficulties, we are planning to do the wastewater project that will connect the Gilboa Street warehouse as well as the Tri-Town warehouse on the other side of 146 to our wastewater station, to a pump station, and then from the pump station back to the main treatment facility. Times are wasted. We are getting to the middle of November, and we're running into some resistance from Mass DOT to open up the road underneath 146 because we are so close to winter. Now, there have been a couple of red herrings thrown our way. Like, we're going to be able to get hot mix. Hello? We can always get hot mix. Plant is right up the street.
Yeah.
So that will not be a problem for temporary patching. I think it's more, at this point, a well-intentioned and perfectly competent individual is putting his hands up because he doesn't have the authority not to. But I think we're going to try to go to a higher level of authority and say, look, it's all sand under there. It's the fastest digging in the world. It'll probably take them 6 shifts of steady work to lay that pipe out of the area of jurisdiction. Now they'll be in the town of Douglas and they can dig all they want. That's what we're trying to convince people to let us do. So until we resolve that issue, we're not going to stop the phases that need to occur, because if we can't be in the Mass DOT area, we will still do the Douglas work. It just will be out of order, out of sync. So you will see, residents will see, a machine that's going to grind up a trench, and the material will be dumped back in place, and they're going to lay pipe as they dig, and their pavement is going to be right behind them.
Similar to the water project.
Similar to the water project. It's going to be on the opposite side of the street. And you'll notice there's a complicated spot where water crosses the road in one direction, and then wastewater is going to cross in the other direction, and that was to realign where everybody's going. So to get the wastewater on the correct side of the street so that it bends around the corner on Charles and into the station. And water continued up Gilboa Street. So at some point, next spring, summer, perhaps early fall, depending on one other thing I'm about to talk about, that entire stretch of Gilboa Street will be repaved curb to curb. The last piece is whether or not gas, natural gas, will go down the middle of Gilboa. We're expecting some kind of word within the next week or so from the DPU on our application for a natural gas franchise from Eversource. It's quite possible that this is the last natural gas franchise ever given in the history of the Commonwealth. Based on just where we are with environmental policy and the fact that most towns already have a natural gas franchise anyway, and Douglas is just an outlier that never got one. But as many of you know, the Attorney General originally took a neutral position on our application, and as of last week, the correspondence that her office sent was in favor of, in support of our application. So at this point, there is no evidence on the record for the hearing officer that is contrary to either the applicant or the interveners that have been allowed. There was resistance from outside groups, but they were not allowed to intervene. So at this point, I don't know if the administrative hearing officer has any choice but to decide on the record and give it to us.
So it's
But obviously,
looking
it's looking good, but, you know, count your chickens
And
until.
when do you expect to hear?
Within the next week or two.
Yeah, okay.
If and when that happens, let's assume a positive outcome, then Eversource has already done all of its drawings. So they would begin work very quickly to try to get this work done before it gets too deep into the winter. So once again, we're getting to the show just as the doors are getting closed. I do think that it's right to be nervous if you are Blackstone Valley Logistics, because they can't get a certificate of occupancy for their building until they have a wastewater connection. And they can't heat the building until they get a natural gas connection. Natural gas is on their side, and they're all in Uxbridge, so they can get to it. But that doesn't do them any good without wastewater, so they really need us to hook up.
How's this play out with the CIG bridge work?
So the farther we go into November, the more likely it is that we'll have a lot of activity going on at the same time in the same area.
But it won't interfere with each other?
They should not interfere with each other, and we're mindful of it, so we have weekly meetings. We didn't bring it up today because right now it seems like we're safe, but at some point, everybody knows there are going to be electric poles moved across the street. And then that enormous pile driver is going to come and sit on the side of the street and cause us to bump everybody over the lane. So again, time is of the essence. They need to do this work under the ground so that everything we're doing on top of the ground doesn't interfere with them. So right now, it doesn't seem to be a conflict, but we're paying attention to it.
Will the digging for the gas be done at the same time as the sewer, or?
Well, you can't have the crews interfering with each other.
Yeah,
Gas is coming from that side, from the Uxbridge side. So we would be best served to get all of our connections done on the Uxbridge side under 146 into the new pump station and completely signed, sealed, and delivered, so they can start to run their gas line from, I assume they're going to go from the live end to the terminus. So they would
Yeah,
start.
they were running down that road.
So they will be down the middle of the street at a different depth. So that crew, though, is likely to be a well-honed machine. And when they start to do their work, it's going to be fast.
Yeah.
certainly the water work was, good
The
people.
water work was incredible.
Yeah.
I really think they did a really wonderful job of keeping and cleaning up the site every day. And we had one complaint about night work, but that night work was absolutely necessary. And we had one foul up with a valve that
Yeah,
that didn't want to cooperate. But again, it could have been so much worse. There was a lot of obstacles under North Street, a lot of obstacles. That's most of the highlights, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to belabor the point. Those are the most important things.
And he's past his 12 minutes, so he feels
So, Mr. Hughes,
A little
thanks you.
bit.
feels safe.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's,
with a little filibuster.
it's conspiracy, it's the deep state, it's everything you ever feared.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
I think we're sold out of tinfoil. It's about as hard to get as cast iron pipe and trucks.
So, open session topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. I think the only thing that I want to say is thank you for the updates on the warehouse project that's going out, and I'd like to publicly debunk the rumor that the Prudential Tower is being built out behind the Lackey Dam Road area. So, that was about all I
You mean
had.
it's the John Hancock building that's going in?
It's not the John Hancock
Okay.
either, no.
The glass panes coming out.
Built this way in the wind.
Yeah, they used to sell them at Building 19. They made coffee tables out of the glass.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Did not know that.
yeah.
So, is there any other open session topics anybody would like to discuss?
No.
No, seeing as none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second?
Made and seconded, any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
All right.